Hello and welcome to the virtual open day of the School of European Languages, Cultures and Societies at UCL. My name's John Dickie, Professor John Dickie. I'm Professor of Italian Studies here, but I'm also admissions tutor. And that's why it's my job. I would love to be able to introduce you to the real site of UCL so you can get a sense of what a buzzy, fast-moving place it is and how wired in to the excitement and the learning resources that there are here in London. But it has to be virtual, and so it has to be quick. And so in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to, my job is to give you a sense of what makes us at SELCS such an exciting place to study languages, the societies where those languages are spoken, and the cultures produced in and about those languages. Now, everything we do here is rooted in a philosophy, and the philosophy is about connectedness. We are not just a collection of atomized departments studying an awful lot of European languages, more than in pretty much any other school of languages in the UK. We are increasingly connected in the way we study these languages, and more connections means more choice for students by bringing them under the same umbrella, under the same roof in the school here. And it increases the opportunities for us as both teachers and researchers for exciting collaboration. From the student's point of view, size matters, and we are a big school offering more choice, more resources than anywhere else, I think, when it comes to learning languages. But we also have, and this is crucial, the sense of community that comes from people who embark together on the shared enterprise of learning a particular language, whether it be Danish or Dutch or Italian or Spanish, whatever it might be. It's often said that London is not just a metropolis, it's a kind of collection of little villages. And in some ways, the same metaphor applies for us. We're a collection of little villages, each studying their particular culture, their particular language, but we've also got a dense web of connections between us in all kinds of ways. Our outlook, and this is a very important part of our philosophy, is also global. And that's not just because French, Spanish, and Portuguese are global languages like English. It's also because European culture, for good and ill, has reshaped the world, and that profound influence, cultural, political influence, is the reason why we don't think you can understand European culture without having a global outlook. And the other key aspect of our philosophy is that we are multidisciplinary. Once upon a time, the study of languages, modern languages, was rooted in the study of literature. You know, you read Italian at university because you wanted to read Dante, or you read Spanish because you wanted to read Cervantes. Now, we still, you know, in some university departments I could name, that is still the case. We have a much, much broader outlook. Now, we do certainly have a great many experts pushing the boundaries in the study of the great landmarks of literature in European languages. But we also have historians, experts in cinema, TV, and other media, in linguistics, in the history of art, in politics, in the history of ideas and philosophy, anthropology. All of those disciplines we bring together and put in the teaching menu, the menu of courses for you. Now, We also offer a range of points of access to the languages and cultures we teach in post A-level. German and Italian, you can study either post A-level or as a beginner or anywhere in between, in fact. So how you access us, at what point you access us, is depends on the options you take and your level of knowledge. And it's worth pausing to think a bit about your options here at this point. Before you embark on studying languages at university, it may well be that your school only offers, say, French and Spanish at A-level or even at all. And your school doesn't have the resources, the expertise to offer such a broad range of languages as the ones we offer. Those options might be for you. Instead of being part of the majority who don't go on to study, say, French or Spanish, why not think, well, gosh, if I took up Portuguese as a beginner, I'd be able to spend my year abroad in Brazil. Or I've always wanted to live in Rome or Milan or Florence. I could start Italian and do a degree in, say, French and Italian. Those options are available to you, and we'd love to talk to you about how you might go about exploring those kinds of options. A crucial part of what we do is the year abroad. We think of it as compulsory. With us, your year abroad in the target language that you're studying would allow you either to study at a prestigious partner university, to take up a work placement, or to teach English with the British Council. And we have destinations across Europe as well as Latin America, Canada, and so on. Now, you may well be aware, perhaps I should just explain, this year abroad is one of the most attractive things about studying languages at university, and it's one of the best things, to be honest, about teaching languages and culture at university like I do, to see how the students grow in their mindset, in their self-confidence, after that year abroad and come back to us in the fourth year, with obviously massively increased fluency in the language, but just a much broader outlook, is really, really exciting. And the best part of the whole, one of the best parts of the whole experience. Now, you may well have heard that Brexit has rather thrown things up in the air for us in terms of the year abroad. Us, I mean those universities where languages are taught in Britain, because Britain chose not to continue membership of the Erasmus scheme, which is an exchange scheme between European universities, which allows student and staff to visit and organise exchanges. So the Erasmus scheme runs out in 2023, and all of British universities, including us, are busy setting up replacement arrangements. And of course, we in SELCS, School of European Languages, Cultures and Societies, are in the forefront of those discussions and arrangements. One thing I think makes us more common anywhere else in Britain, that we'll have some really exciting options available to offer students who begin 3 after Erasmus runs out, and that is London. The appeal of London, the magnetic attraction of London to students from across the world who want to come and study here and experience London is such that it's a great selling point, and it's one of the things that makes us confident that we get the pick, basically, of exchange arrangements from across Europe and elsewhere. And that's one of the things that makes us very confident we'll have a great options in place when Erasmus runs out. Now, I've already explained to you how within SELCS we teach an extraordinary range of European languages. The thing is, it doesn't stop there. Because we're UCL, and because UCL has a huge concentration of expertise beyond SELCS, beyond our particular school, and because UCL is wired into other institutions and other organizations to multiply even further the options and resources available, we can, through collaborations with other departments within UCL or with other institutions outside UCL, we can offer all kinds of other languages and courses of study to you. For example, through the School of Slavonic and East European Studies right next door, part of UCL, we can, right next door physically to our building, that is, we can offer you Russian and a whole range of other East European languages to combine with the languages you might study at SELCS. Through Hebrew and the Department of Hebrew and Jewish Studies here at UCL, you can study Hebrew, for example, in a combination. Through the Department of Classics, you could combine Latin or ancient Greek, and so on and so forth. There's Arabic we have on our menu, Japanese, Mandarin, and so on and so forth. It really is a mind-blowing range of options. And just to blow your mind even further, I think one of the real selling points of our degrees within SELCS is what we call the ELCS modules, European Languages, Cultures and Societies. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you're doing a degree in French and Spanish, or Spanish and management, whatever it might be. You wouldn't just be studying modules about the Spanish language and about Spanish literature and Spanish history and Spanish cinema and all of those kinds of things. You would also have ELCS modules to study, options every year. And these ELCS modules cover subjects that go beyond the confines of one language. They bring in materials and themes that are cross-cultural, cross-disciplinary. So I've already mentioned how we take a multidisciplinary approach with literature experts, historians, linguisticians, and so on and so forth. But these courses take a cross-cultural approach, and so would study things like superheroes or detective fiction in European culture, poetry or trauma, nationalism or the universal structures of human language, transnational migration or fascism, the literature of imagined space travel or organized crime. All of those are part of the menu of options if you study with us. So the question is, with all of that diversity on offer, how do we create degree courses? How do we shape all of those options into a coherent menu of a degree program, an individual degree? Okay, you can study with us, study a classic single honors degree, a BA in German, a BA in Italian, a BA in Spanish and Latin American studies. These are not the only options, they're just there as examples. Or just as classic, you could do a joint honors degree in BA French and Spanish, BA German and Icelandic, and so on and so forth, okay? Those are pretty much like the kinds of degrees that you might find at other universities, although obviously they don't quite offer, very often don't offer the sheer range of languages that we offer. But you can also combine languages with lots of other disciplines. And again, these, I should stress, these are just examples. There are many, many more options available for you to explore. For example, Italian and management, Italian and history of art, French with film, German and philosophy, French and Latin, German and English, and so on and so forth. Okay, you could also do the BA in French and an African or Asian language, the BA in Viking and Old Norse studies, and so on and so forth. So all of these are, if you like, the formula we use to give coherence to all of that massive diversity that we offer. We don't just let you loose in this proliferation of courses and languages, clearly. There's a couple of degree courses that I ought to mention. I don't want to go into too much detail about them, about the nature of these degrees, but something you might want to explore. Broadly speaking, these two degree structures give you more flexibility in your language study. And I think, you know, one of the very distinctive things about our student body at SELCS compared to other universities across the country is that our students are very, very international. We are a global university. UCL calls itself London's global university, and it's not a vain boast. Now, already you'll find that our student body is very, very diverse, and it's incredibly exciting to study in a place where you could find yourself sitting next to somebody from anywhere else in the world. But I think the students we recruit for the BA Language and Culture and the BA Comparative Literature are even more global, if you like, than the students in the rest of our degree programs. Very briefly, BA Languages and Culture is for students particularly interested in sociolinguistics and cultural studies. You get to create a little bit more of a made-to-measure degree also with specialist modules from across UCL and even beyond things that you might want to do a unit in journalism or a dissertation. The options are really very, very broad indeed. Comparative literature, as the name suggests, is driven by the study of literature, but it's for people who want a much more global perspective on literature, a much more international perspective than is possible within the narrow confines of a degree in English literature. So that's the exciting thing about comparative literature, the comparative literature degree that we offer. So I hope I'm kind of already preaching to the converted, but it's worth, I'm sure you already know the extreme, the huge value of studying languages at university. Language graduates come with that mixture of the sort of linguistic rigor needed to study a language, but also the analytical skill and communicative flair that comes from humanities degrees more generally. It makes language graduates the most employable of humanities graduates. You know, I hope also that I don't have to convince you of, you know, that lazy assumption that everybody's going to be speaking English anyway. And so why learn a language? That's a terrible, terrible mistake. You know, the employers' organizations are constantly crying out saying, we don't produce enough language graduates. Where are the language graduates? Where are the language skills in the workforce? We undersupply, we as a country undersupply language graduates to our labor market. And so you get an inbuilt advantage, if you like. You should remember 75% of the world's population speak no English at all. 50% of Britain's trade is still with Europe. And of course, it's fair enough if you are the customer and somebody from abroad is coming to you and wanting to sell you something, you tell them to speak English. Of course you do, you would expect them to do. But try going abroad and selling something to somebody when you only speak English. See how easy that is compared to having access to the language and the culture when when the boot is on the other foot, as it were. Okay, so I did a little exercise. Actually, it was during lockdown. In the depths of lockdown, I did this on Wednesday, the 24th of February. But it's a little exercise that you can repeat if you're curious. You can visit a website called Indeed, indeed.co.uk, which is a kind of graduate jobs website. It's not sort of muck jobs. And it offers graduate jobs in London, ranging from, starter jobs for new graduates to quite senior managerial positions. And you can specify the requirements there, or the skills you might have. And you just put in a language and you see in real time how many jobs there are available for people with specific language skills. On that day, 24th of February, when the labour market was in, a slump because of lockdown, there were 114 jobs available for people with a knowledge of Danish. Now, we teach Danish. We're the only place in London that does. It would take us many years to produce 114 graduates in Danish. There is, in other words, more demand than supply. Portuguese, the same story, 152. With Italian, it's 804. So the jobs are out there. London is one of the most dynamic labour market and most global labour markets in the world, and the hunger for language skills is there. So try that. Visit indeed.co.uk and get a sense of what's out there for you. So, summarising, what makes SELCS special? Okay, we've got this unique structure and academic excellence. We have small, friendly language departments, those villages I talked about, yet they're wired into a school that has a global perspective and emphasizes connections. Of course, language, we have a cult of language proficiency and the year abroad. Our staff are international. When we advertise a job as a lecturer or professor here, we are inundated with applications from all over the world. Competition for places here is fierce. We have a focus, of course, on excellence in teaching and support. It might surprise you to know we have the lowest staff to student ratio of any public UK university, 1 to 10. And of course, our students themselves are part of the experience, part of the attraction of university. This global hub of learning that UCL makes it a unique learning experience in Britain. And then, of course, there is the fact that we are in London. Starting with UCL, the library resources that are at your fingertips here at UCL, the British Library, one of the biggest libraries in the world, is 10 minutes walk away. There's the University of London Library at Senate House, which is about 200 meters away. There are other libraries and study institutes very, very near around us. There's the BFI, British Film Institute, on the banks of the Thames. Again, you can walk down there in 20 minutes, which is a unique hub for studying film and seeing classic films and historical films and so on and so forth. Most of the major European nations have big cultural institutes in London, the Italian Cultural Institute, the Goethe Institute for Germany, which have, events and so on. London is unique in the amount of, theatre, original language, film festivals for languages across Europe. There, if you're interested in the history of art, the great galleries and museums. This is where the big global exhibitions come to. Not to mention the restaurants, the theatres, and so on and so forth. You know, London, for whichever language you care to name, there is a community from that of native speakers of that language who live and work in London and create their culture here within the city. And of course, the connectedness stretches as well to physical transport. You know, think of the airports: Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, City Airport. You are never far from anywhere in the world if you're in London. There's the Eurostar as well, which is 10 minutes walk away to get the train to mainland Europe. And that is an offering that nowhere in Britain, nowhere in the world, I don't think, can imitate. And it's one of the many things that goes to make us regularly classified as one of the world's best universities. Now, we realize what I've offered you is a kind of head-spinning range of options and choices and so on. Obviously, there's more material out there, the prospectus and so on for you to look at. We're very keen for you to communicate with us if you have any questions. And there are two starting point places I'd suggest you look. For information on things like accommodation, on the cost of living in London, some of the practicalities. Incidentally, the cost of living in London is not nearly as high as people often fear. So it's worth looking into that. You look at that URL, www.ucl.ac.uk/students/new-students. And there's all sorts of material, videos there and links with lots of information. For inquiries related more specifically to our courses and our combinations, you can email us at selcs.inquiries@ucl.ac.uk. So if you ask us about things like accommodation, we'll just pass you back to the UCL central admissions people. But we'll deal with stuff specifically to do with all those options and so on that we have available. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to answer some of the classic questions that we get at open days. If I can just scrabble around and find my sheet of paper, the classic questions that we tend to get when we have interactive open days. One is, how many contact hours can I expect as a student at SELCS? The answer is it varies. It varies according to the options you take. Studying languages as a beginner tends to mean more contact hours. So you might be, you know, your total number of hours in class might go up to as much as, say, 15 if you're doing ab initio Russian, for example. Ab initio, I mean, starting from completely from scratch. Normally speaking, and once you get into the second year, final year, it beds down at around 8 to 10 hours of contact time per week. Okay, but we're also off staff are obviously constantly available now for, you know, Zoom contact, face-to-face meetings, hopefully in the new year. In the new academic year and so on and so forth. Another question that people often ask is, well, I know some Italian. What class will I be put in? I'm neither quite a beginner or post A-level. I'm somewhere in between. And the same goes for a lot of other languages. The answer is very simply that we sit everybody down at the beginning of the year, and we give you a test, not in a pass or fail test, a test that's meant to establish what language group to put you in so that you start at the right starting point. So there's no need to be concerned about that. We're used to teaching students from all kinds of different language backgrounds, people who perhaps have spoken, you know, Italian at home, have an Italian relative. I'm staying within the example of Italian, but the same applies to other languages. But I'm not very sure of my grammar, or, you know, I'm not very good at the writing side of things, that sort of thing. We're very, very used to coping with all of that variety of starting points in the language. And a third question, can I take additional languages or other subjects as part of the program? So, you know, people who are enthusiastic linguists at A level tend to think, oh gosh, I want to study 3 or 4 languages. When you know, they get big eyes when they see all those options, and they want to start study all sorts of languages. Our experience teaches us that more than 2 is too many, that it doesn't offer enough depth. And so we restrict it to 2. However, on your year abroad, if you study at another university, we don't restrict the topics that you can study. You can, if you want, as long as you're studying in the target language, if you're studying at a French university, as long as you're studying a course taught in French, then you can study what you like. So you could learn Chinese or whatever it might be through the medium of French on your year abroad. So that's one way that you can fulfill your hunger to study even more languages at SELCS. I'm sure there are lots of other questions. We're well used to receiving them, and I'm very happy to field them. So do contact us. And we'll see what we can do to put your mind to rest. So I hope you've enjoyed this rapid tour through the extraordinary world of SELCS, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Goodbye.